changing, there's really nothing else to discuss in that. Do you get all the signatures you need yet?
No, I have some more for Ed and Howard to sign.
You can pass it around.
You can
during
get
the
Ed to
meeting.
sign and leave them with me, and I'll get Howard. We see him almost every day.
Okay, great.
We need to state for the minutes, Julio, what the accounts are for and who the signers are.
Yes, we need to state, we're planning to open a new sales tax escrow account for Seminary Hill. We've already received the fees, so we just need to open the account. And we need to state that the signers are the chairman, CEO, and the CFO, which is Ira, Howard, and Ed.
Okay. So we'll go into the first resolution approving the payment, quarterly payment for the partnership. Motion?
Hold on. It's important that everybody. Okay, it's been distributed.
There's one of the block account. So any questions or discussion? Just want to make sure everybody is aware of the fact that we can get copies of it. That the partnership makes reports every single month to the CED committee. So I think, Jen, do you get copies of those?
Yes.
Those activities?
Yeah, I have.
Those reports go to IDA and CED.
Yeah. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that, in case there's any questions on performance and things like that. So a motion on the resolution?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next resolution is appropriately named the psychedelic Sullivan project.
Okay, let's.
Just because of the location.
We like it.
Yeah. Okay. Another solar project. I think this is something we should be very proud of in Sullivan County. I think we're leaders in the state with how we've been handling solar development. I think it's important for the environment. I think it's good for the area. So first the motion, so we can have a discussion. Carol? Second. Joey? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The resolution did have one blank in it. I wanted to get clarification, which we can backfill it. Is March 4th the date that you show as being the date that they applied, or was it?
The day we received the final application was February 11th. It was unsigned, so the signature pages are dated March 4th. So we
Okay.
received the application.
And which is why I wanted to get guidance from you. What do you want me to fill in on what date would you like there? You didn't get signatures till the 4th of March, right? Okay. And that was on the second page near the top where there was a blank?
Okay.
Who made that motion and who?
It was Carol and Joe second.
Okay.
Next one is approving the Roseman Solar LLC project. Motion?
Thank you, everyone, for
Good seeing you. Yeah. So it was Paul and who second? Carol?
This is a little bit different than all the rest because the original project company tenant was Cypress Creek. And to the best of my knowledge, they have still not built the first array in the great state of New York, but they sold the project to Delaware River Solar. So it's still, this, like many of our other projects, is going to involve a lease description, which will then be amended in the future, which we're in the process of doing with all 4 of the Villa Roma solar projects right now. Ed recently signed those. And the resolution was prepared in contemplation of the language, including tuning up the description once the projects are built. And to give you an idea of the substantial magnitude of change, there was a 14-acre lot in our application for one of the Villa Roma arrays once they built it, and the surveyor did the as-built survey. It was 14.01 acres. So they changed very immaterially, but this, like the others, will end up having an as-built because the town requires it, and when the as-built comes in, when you add the setback distances from the array, it may vary immaterially, but there still will be amended and restated documents like we just did on the 4 Villa Roma projects, where it was no more than 1/10 or 100th or 200ths of an acre, but still changes.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? The next resolution is extending the sales tax abatement for Sullivan Resorts LLC through September 2020. Motion? You'll have a second. Any motion?
Let me hand it
Hold on,
out.
please.
Okay,
So that,
try and move along so Paul gets to his seat.
just relax a little bit. They are very close to their authorized limit. So Jen or Julio or both will be reaching back to them to suggest to them that if the amount of additional expenditures, this, like Kutcher's, is cleaning up, in this case, a woefully contaminated piece of property to prepare it for future development.
Where is it?
Grossinger's?
Grossinger's.
Oh, okay. This is Grossman's?
This is Grossinger's. So they had a brownfield application approved by New York State with a cost share on cleanup. And they originally contemplated doing a certain amount of work. And as the DEC and them discover additional, I guess they call them hotspots.
Yep.
The amount of work they need to do has increased.
Yep.
So they're fairly close, and I don't know what fairly close means. Can you give us any guidance on what fairly close means to their limit?
Oh, $5,000 worth of exemption that they still have authorized, and so they're close.
So if it
Yes,
appears,
sorry.
Yeah.
That's about a half a
And
day's
they're,
work.
and they're aware of that.
And how much was the original amount?
Total exemption, 300.
Sales tax.
sales tax. So if they get up against the limit, we will bring a resolution to the next meeting to increase the limit, because it's been our intent for these projects that are preparing to build something to allow them the opportunity to do whatever work the local officials or the DEC discovers.
So they will have a clean slate, so to speak, if and when somebody else ever wants to develop it.
Including themselves.
Okay.
This is owned
Which
by,
one should I hold my breath for?
I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath for either, but, you know, we cleaned up the Concord, and now we have a casino, a water park, hotel, a golf course, you know, you never know. But unless something has changed, it's been this board's view that allowing sales tax exemption to fix broken eggs is a good thing.
I couldn't agree more, because if you mess around with stuff with a problem on it, it can destroy the project. Oh, sure, yeah.
It's interesting though, since a lot of it's grant money in the CDC, that they even have sales tax, that they don't take it.
There was originally,
There is some logic to what you just
No,
said.
there
It just doesn't make sense.
There was originally a lack of understanding on our part about those rules, which we now understand them. There are guidance documents indicating that certain cleanup efforts are not subject to sales tax. We found out by research at Kutcher's that that's the case if it's part of building something new. So if at Kutcher's, they demoed the hotel, the old hotel, if they had demoed that hotel and on the same site built something new, the demo would have not even been subject to sales tax because it's part of the capital improvement for a new project. But where they demoed that hotel and they built the wellness center a mile down the road, the demo of the hotel was subject to sales tax. And since there's no application known to any of us to do anything at Grossinger's, we feel that these expenditures are all subject to sales tax. It's not part of a new project, it's part of preparing the land for a new project someday.
Do we know how much more preparation is needed to get over this issue?
Jen got a list, she can go over it with you.
Dollar-wise?
Well, they've already spent $6 million and change.
That's the demolition. How much of this is remediation?
Oh, no, some of that was the demolition, a great deal of that was taking out of 20-some underground tanks.
Oh, okay.
What do you have there, Jen? You
We had
have-
a lot of thanks up there too. Thanks for working with that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Right, so their original budget, I think in the application to us was around 6.2 million. And they're probably there. The request for this extension relates to further grading and stabilization of the soil, backfilling some areas, that were excavated to remove the tanks, shore of an existing road. It may also be required to add more monitoring wells, and there is also an additional building to be demolished. So I don't know how much of that is
They
going to
got a
be
ways to
taxable
go.
otherwise, but they have some.
They're, you know, the part of it that looked like Bosnia no longer is there. But there's still one building, I think, to be taken down, right? That was,
You can't see it as you come down the back road anymore.
there's nothing, when you're driving down 17 now, you see no
Also
old
back,
buildings.
Back road. yeah.
Right. So I think it's safe to say that they've done the substantial majority of the work, and what they have left are some things that they were not able to finish because of something we have here that doesn't exist very much anymore, but it's called winter. We still have enough to prevent them from doing final grading until it dries up.
By the way, looking at the implications of this, it pays us to get involved in having it completed, so that if something does come along, it ends up as a disaster because this wasn't completed, so this is important, I think.
Okay?
I'll call the question in, all in favor?
Who moved it? Paul?
And Carolyn. So I'll call the question in, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next one is sales tax abatement for Varia Lifestyle through September 30th.
I have had some discussions with the project, and I still have some questions for them on the reason for the request for extension. So if the board would maybe consider tabling that until later this month, so I can just get all the information I need.
So these extensions, are these because they haven't finished their paperwork on their end?
I can explain. Before, we used to give project duration sales tax abatement. By doing that, somebody, if they had a 3-year project, got a sales tax letter that ended in 3 years. There was no method for us in that case to monitor whether they were filing reports with the IDA that they're supposed to file, or if they were paying their sales tax exemption payments to IDA. So in order to keep tabs on these things as they went along, the board changed their policy quite a few years ago to only give 6-month extensions. But in our project and agent agreement, it provides that so long as they're filing their reports and paying their abatement fees, and their project hasn't changed, that the board will give them extensions. So it's because we had bad experiences when we were giving long duration. So now we do it 6 months at a time, and then when it comes up for renewal,
Right. So the 6-month period that they're doing could be work from 2018?
could be a project, so we have some projects that have a 20-year timeline or 10-year timeline.
Right,
Nobody's ever used the whole timeline.
right.
But if they were to build something else at Kutsher's, it would still be covered by the master development and agent agreement, which for Kutsher's was for a 10-year period.
Oh, okay, okay,
But there's no project happening there right now, or very little,
right.
so
So it winds down, it could be a 10-year period, it could wind down.
that's the exception.
Okay.
Most of them are a couple of years.
You know, until they
But
build
we
out
don't
and
give
finish.
people a couple of year sales tax abatement letter, because then there's no way to keep tabs on it.
Right, they could abuse it, yeah. sure.
Right.
Okay.
So instead, we give it to them for 6 months.
Okay, see what it.
And then at the end of 6 months, it comes back to the board. And then Julio and Jen let you know as board members, have they done what they're supposed to?
Related to their project.
Right.
Is there anything going on in Berea?
Well, there's a letter that we need to deal with today also, but in terms of their sales tax extension, I think what Jen is saying is let's put it off till the next meeting, which will be later this month, so she can get a better understanding of what's left. Because the other thing is, when you have a project that got a CEO a year and a half ago, and they still want a sales tax letter, we want to know, what do you need it for?
Right.
Correct, and that's that was my
So they're not
question.
using it to buy kitchen supplies and toilet paper, they're using it to build their project.
Right, right.
We have no doubt that they're using it for the right reasons, because
You would hope.
they have a lot of landscaping that died that they need to replace,
Right. Okay.
correct?
Right.
So can we then, on the same project, get into the next issue? Is that okay, Ira?
Yeah.
They have had their problems. In your packet, there was a letter from them asking for a waiver of the employment obligations for the project.
So,
I think at the last meeting, was this discussed at the last meeting?
No, we didn't, we received that between
Okay.
last meeting and this one.
So what we've done with these in the past is Ira has appointed a member or two to gather facts and to report back to the board at an upcoming meeting with a recommendation. Because just getting a letter saying we have a need is probably not the in-depth review that the board would like to see happen before you consider something like a waiver of employment.
one of my concerns is, going forward after this, that if we do for one, we should have some kind of a, system in place that, okay, you ask once, and we give them grace for that, and maybe on a percentage level, because this can happen to another company, and then.
In other words, always said, what's the precedent?
Right, because-
I think that's why, instead of acting without an in-depth review and recommendation, and every single situation is gonna be different, but I understand
Yeah.
your concern. So what we've done in the past is Ira has appointed one or two members to gather additional information for the project and to report back with a recommendation.
Yes, one of the buildings, yes.
Okay. I'm appointing
So you're appointing Paul and Joe? Is
Yeah.
that what you were,
Who? No.
Paul and Joe.
and Joe, right, two. You've appointed in the past two. Basically, what's happened over there, as you know from looking at their website, they have made a decision to only be open on weekends. So the entire staff, other than 2 or 3 senior managers at this point, are all part-time. And they have struggled, their mortgage is in foreclosure. It's been widely reported that their mortgage is in foreclosure. And this waiver is one of the things that the bank has asked them to accomplish as part of a request for forbearance on the foreclosure.
Who holds the mortgage?
It's
Canara Bank?
Canara Bank and United Bank of India,
Oh.
neither of which have a branch in the county.
You and I gotta get on a plane and fly for 15 hours to go to India.
I don't think they're getting on a plane these days.
No kidding.
Actually, they said the plane air is probably the best air to breathe.
Unless there's one.
They said
person-
it's good. They said
Yeah,
unless
they-
there's one
they are, as
person-
long as now anybody's
No, but
sitting on a
I was
plane.
watching a documentary yesterday about these airplanes, the way they get filtered and ionized and all this stuff is pretty interesting.
I'll let you test it. You'll be okay with it.
Listen, we get to, it's the first club on it, after that.
Okay,
Okay.
We have a similar request from Doge Family LLC, which is the adaptive reuse as a transient lodging facility of the former community, the former hospital,
Calico Hospital.
which was a branch of what's now Catskill Regional Medical Center in Calico. Correct?
Well, no, it was a former hospital, but Charlie Mills owned it.
And then it
And
became,
it was an apartment house.
okay,
And then when Doge bought, now he's converting them into B&Bs, I guess, or something like it.
and,
Both the two buildings, the other one was the doctor's offices.
correct. This is the,
I see it,
yeah.
So,
So,
my concerns about that, because I looked at it, I see the things. Now, what happens if these folks, we okay it, they renovate them, and all of a sudden, what they plan to do there doesn't work, and then they sell the project over?
if they sell the project, there's a lot of questions within that question. If they sell the project to somebody else who runs it as a transient lodging facility, and that person otherwise qualifies for IDA benefits, in other words, they're not on like the federal government disbarment list where we can't deal with them,
Right?
the project would likely transition to the new owner, which happens here all the time.
Right, okay.
If they change the use, if he tries to rent these out as transient lodging facilities, and he were, for example, to change the use and put long-term tenants in there, he would no longer qualify for these benefits under our program, and we would revoke the benefits.
All right, so what if they received the benefits already, and they changed it
Do we
after
get
like a
anything
year?
back, is what you're saying?
And we
Hold
get
on.
it back.
Okay. The primary benefit they're receiving is real property tax abatement.
Right. Mortgage tax and sales tax.
Yeah, but there was no mortgage on this, right?
Yeah, it was 45.
Yeah, but it would
4,500
be,
worth of tax money.
that was because he may have been giving a mortgage to himself. He self-financed it.
Okay.
So the primary benefit that they're getting is long-term real property tax abatement under our tourism destination UTAP. If it ceased to be a tourism destination, we would terminate the benefits. We always have viewed the sales tax benefit as being earned, if you will, when you do the construction, because of all the activity, all the expenditure, you're getting a sales tax benefit, but you're also spending money on carpenters, plumbers. Notice I said carpenters first, electricians. So that's, yeah.
Unless something important's going on, I apologize.
Okay, so,
Just concerns.
so on this, it would be the same thing, Ira, you'd appoint one or two people to get more information and report back with a recommendation. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The one question I was gonna ask is, because this project pilot agreement hasn't been executed yet.
Correct.
I didn't know if that's necessary, obviously.
When the
it's
board approved
When the board
this, they
right.
approved this based upon a cost-benefit analysis that showed some level of employment.
Right.
Doug has subsequently decided he'd be better off hiring a management company to do the work instead of employees to do the work. The impact on the local economy will be identical, but the persons doing the work won't be working for Doge Family 3 LLC. They'll be working for one of a number of management companies that he would hire to run the project for him.
There's a project that was not long-term employment.
The project was approved with a half of a long-term employee because he expected at the time that he was gonna have his own manager.
Right.
He subsequently decided not to do that.
So there will not be a.
There'll be 0 employees that work for the applicant. But the impact is the same, because somebody's gonna do the cleaning, somebody's gonna do the reservations, the
Still gonna be
booking.
somebody working there.
It just won't be somebody working for our applicant, it'll be somebody working for a management.
So the reasons for these applications we filled out is supposed to be job creation, besides the carpenter. I understand that you have carpenters, plumbers, electricians there.
Yeah,
But is it long-term employment also?
but the long-term employment won't change, the employer of the manager will change. Our
Would be an
applicant won't be the
outside
Without a
employer.
long answer, do we want them to be Sullivan County residents?
I don't think we necessarily have ever, I don't know if we can impose that as a condition.
Okay. But there is no such condition.
We have job hiring language in the pilot agreement which gives a preference to certain types of employees. It's not geographically preferred. We prefer people who are, for example, collecting social services as a preferred employee. But in this hiring environment, it doesn't often happen.
So, okay.
When we looked at that issue many years ago, we realized that there are many more people that live in Sullivan County that go somewhere else to work than live somewhere else and come to Sullivan County to work.
Thank you.
Ed and Scott, it's in your neck of the woods, right? So you're familiar?
I'm not familiar with the management company he's gonna hire.
He's got it narrowed down to 2 or 3. You're familiar with at least one of them. But he, at this point, is gonna send out an RFP and say, how would you handle it?
I'm talking about his liaison, one of you two, because it's in your
You
neck
want
of
me
the
to,
woods.
you want me to be the committee?
If you don't mind, the two of you, if you want.
Okay.
So
Okay,
you're
it's that long.
appointing Ed and
Yeah. Scott.
Ed and Scott, okay?
Do you know how to find your way down
I think I've been there once or twice.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay, so what's left is the procurement and review of the different policies. Do you want me to open up the other 2 meetings and?
Usually, because I've got to get out of here, so.
I don't think there's any other votes that really, they're just, you know,
We do have the need for a very short executive session before you close the IDA meeting. It will literally be 2 minutes or less.
why don't we do that first?
I think we should just do it and get it over with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion
And has to do with the Catskill Distilling Company bankruptcy. Cat, there you go. Better?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. And it's not an executive session, it's a closed session to obtain
Doesn't
legal
matter.
advice.
If you're happy, we're happy.
You're discussing.
If you're happy, we're happy. There you go.
Yeah.
Move second.
Carolyn.